This Shabbat, we begin the book of Exodus. And right from the start, we are hit with a ton of information. First thing, everyone has died. Joseph, his brothers, that entire generation have died. If we consider a generation to be about 20 or 30 years, we have to assume that amount of time has passed since we have heard from our ancestors at the end of the book of Genesis. Then a new Pharaoh arises, and the Torah tells us that this Pharaoh does not know Joseph. Now, being the biblical scholar that I am, this leads me to believe that even more time has passed. It's not only that he didn't know Joseph, I think that he didn't even know about Joseph. I figure we are way more than 1 or 2 generations removed. Most of us know our grandparents and our great-grandparents' names, or they are at least familiar when someone speaks of them. But further back than that, we need a tree, a chart, and possibly a DNA swab. The Pharaoh didn't know Joseph because too much time had passed. He isn't even familiar with the story because maybe, just maybe, he might have acted differently towards the descendants of the man who saved Egypt from famine. But he didn't. Instead, he says the word that might be my absolute favorite in the entire Torah, and it's called a hapax legomenon, meaning it only appears once. The Pharaoh, looking out at the people, says, Hava nitchak ma. Let's outsmart them, meaning the Israelites, and enslave them before they can rise up against us. The word nitchak ma comes from the Hebrew word chacham, which means smart or wise. Or, if you want to be really sarcastic, you can say chacham, basically telling someone they are the opposite of smart and wise and have no idea what they're talking about. Anyway, the Torah gives us zero indication that the Israelites have done anything to provoke the Egyptians or have any ideas of attacking them. Remember, they were living well in Egypt. Their crime, there were too many of them. So Pharaoh, who I think was more of a chacham than a chacham, decides to enslave our ancestors. What the Pharaoh never thought to do was actually to ask any of the Israelites or their leaders if they had any plans to revolt. As far as we know, he did not, and they did not. But the Pharaoh didn't do any research, no interviews, no recognizance. Instead, he said, let's just outsmart them and attack them first. Not chacham. We see this attempt to outsmart an opponent over and over and over in lots of situations throughout history. Now, I am a sports fan. I went to every U of M football game when I was a student. I love going to Tiger games, and I do love our Lions. Now, Ryan, my husband, and his dad have been suffering with the Lions their entire lives and have remained true to the team no matter what. There are t-shirts that actually say, I was a Lions fan before it was cool. They are those fans. Raise your hand if you are that fan as well. Good job. What I have learned about football is that you choose a play you are going to run and try to anticipate the play that the other team is going to run. There's a learning curve. That is why they watch tape. They watch films over and over. It's not just learning what they could do better, but also, maybe even more importantly, they're learning about what the other team might do. Yes, they might try to outsmart the other team, but it's always a good idea to be smarter than the other team. You can't outsmart someone if you have zero clue about them and what their intentions might be. The Lions know that when Green Bay runs a certain play that they have seen before, they should counter it with the play that they know will give the best defense. Now, you can't always anticipate. They're constantly changing, but there are patterns that you can learn. They can figure out what guy should be where to give the best defense. The hook and ladder, that's outsmarting your opponent because they won't expect it. Running it up the middle, totally predictable. Dan Campbell going for it on 4th down, okay, predictable at this point, but chacham, smart. The Lions have become the team to outsmart. Now, another situation. In LA, we have seen terrible destruction because there is no outsmarting nature. You can plan controlled burns to stifle the oxygen out of the main fire, but most of the time, Mother Nature wins. Jeff Goldblum said in the movie Jurassic Park something to the effect of, "Life escapes all barriers. Life breaks free. Life expands to new territories, painfully, perhaps even dangerously, but life finds a way." Nature also finds a way. Nature is a formidable opponent and perhaps one of the only opponents that humankind has not been able to outsmart. Thank you to everyone who donated to our Help from Afar campaign to help our Jewish community in LA. Because of your donations and the donations of $1,800 each from the Rabbis and Cantors funds, since Wednesday at about 4 o'clock, we have raised over $8,000. Please continue to donate and know you are contributing to the rebuilding of Jewish communities and Jewish homes. Yet another situation. October 7th was a shock to our Jewish souls. And if we are to admit it, it's not just the horrific loss of life, the violence, and the bloodshed that shocked us. It was because Hamas outsmarted us. Like Pharaoh, they looked at the people of Israel and said, "Hava nitzchakma." Let's outsmart them. Let's attack them before they attack us. Israel was completely unprepared for this attack, something we are not used to. We know the Israel of the Six-Day War and the Yom Kippur War, where Israel vanquished their enemies swiftly. October 7th was a different Israel, a vulnerable Israel, an unprepared Israel. And rightfully so, it terrified Israelis and it terrified us. But then, the IDF carried out the craziest, most covert, most brilliant counterattacks the world has ever seen. They planted a bomb under the bed of the leader of Hamas, killing him and no one else. They blew up beepers and cell phones of terrorists, meaning somehow they infiltrated their supply chain. Astonishing. Once again, Israel was on the side of being the outsmarter, not the outsmartee. Tonight, we pray that the ceasefire holds and that the hostages come home. An agreement has been signed, and God willing, we will be able to remove 33 chairs from our sanctuary. And God willing, as Rabbi just said, we will see the Bibas babies, and we pray they're in good health and their family can finally be reunited. The ceasefire is another case of know thy enemy. We knew there would be horrible concessions for this to happen. We know that something can happen that will delay or deny the next group of hostages. We know that the Israeli Knesset and the current coalition is fragile, and what or who will come next is yet to be determined, and that will directly impact how we move forward. The amount of healing that is necessary for those who are held captive in darkness, those who are waiting for them, their extended families, and the people of Israel and the Jewish community around the world feels almost impossible. Someone smarter than I once said that after losing someone you love, you can learn to dance again. You just dance with a limp. We, as the Jewish people, will dance again, just with a limp. We have been dancing with a limp for 2,000 years, but we have never stopped dancing, because that is who we are. We are tough. We are resilient. We are chacham. We don't live scared. We live with joy and hope and sarcasm and chutzpah. May we see the hostages return in peace. May we see a ceasefire that brings peace and keeps peace. May we go back to arguing with each other over politics and Torah and recipes like we used to, and go back to making fun of each other and calling each other chacham with as much sarcasm as possible. And may we always be the chacham, the wise nation, the prepared nation, the nation that always, always pursues peace. Finally, God, if it's not too much to ask, give strength to the Lions, guide their plays, support Dan Campbell's choices, strengthen Jared Goff's arm and aim. If we do all these things, oh God, we will have one nation, one pride. All right, is everyone ready? Jared Goff, Jared Goff, Jared Goff. Well done, everyone. Shabbat shalom.